Hello everybody, it's me, GhostCritic, and I'm back here again for another Sunday comic book review video. I've got 7 books to chat about this week that were on my pull list. Let's just crack on with it this week. Starting off with issue number 27 of Colin Bunn's X-Men Blue, still plodding along with this Cry Havoc storyline and this Mother Vine concept that is turning mutants, kind of causing them to have secondary mutations, and those who have not yet manifested their mutations to give that a push. What the kind of Havoc, Emma and the rest of the Cabal are trying to do is make the mutant population the dominant species. It's okay. It's nothing earth-shattering. We kind of get a short interlude. We go back a few weeks with Lorna and Magneto having a chat, which appears quite harmless and innocent, kind of father and daughter bonding session, but obviously whenever Magneto's around he's got a hidden agenda and he wants Lorna to go up against Havoc. Obviously the connection between those two, they've had a relationship in the past on and off. He thinks she's going to be the one to get through to him, and we see the outcome of that by the end of this issue. Our newly formed X-Men Blue, headed by Lorna, with who have we got on the team now? Jimmy Hudson, Bloodstorm, Shenzorn, the Gazing Nightshade and Daken. They all managed to kind of calm down the big kind of mutant riot that's going on in the city, and now they're going to take the fight to this sinister cabal that's headed by Havoc. And of course they get so far and Lorna tries to get through to Havoc, but, and again, you just don't know if Havoc is just kind of trying to push the envelope as far as he can to kind of ingratiate himself as the leader of this cabal and manage to kind of turn things at the end just as it's all culminating, or is he, or has he really turned to the dark side? Is he really a villain baddie? Which seems to be the case. We see Emma's reluctance on this whole escapade that this cabal is going on about. But at the same time you're hearing their kind of telepathic messages between each other, which kind of makes you feel like they're playing the whole double agent thing. As I've said with this before, it's a little bit confusing and a little bit, at least for me as the reader of this, I'm just not sure. And it's not the kind of exciting I'm not sure, it's just a confusing not sure. Issue number 46 of Joshua Williamson's The Flash, getting ever closer to the Flash War, and I guess this is very much a prelude to it, with we saw the culmination of last issue, the meeting of Iris and Wally West when he uncovered and kind of revealed his identity to Iris, caused a some sort of memory recall, and now Wally can remember everything that went on in his past, which is all very well and good for the purposes of this book. For the purpose of this particular reader, because I've never read Flash before, this is, I don't know whether this is good for a new reader of The Flash who's just jumped on with this kind of volume, this iteration of The Flash, or if it's more of a hindrance, because we get a lot of talk about past things that have gone in the kind of Flash chronology, and I'm sure that's just as confusing for long-term Flash fans anyway, with the retcons and the revamps and the relaunches. But we kind of focus on 2 villains. One which is, I've forgotten his name, Hunter Zolomon, is it? yes, Hunter Zolomon, who had, I guess, some beef with the original Flash, the kind of JSA Flash, and that didn't obviously go down well, and now he's in a wheelchair, he's in prison. And then we have the other Flash, Ebba Thwain, there, who is kind of like the nemesis, the main villain for our Barry Allen Flash. And it's a weird concoction of what these villains are kind of trying to do, because throughout it they have the kind of same mindset that they go up against their own versions of the Flash, because they want to make the Flash a better hero, I guess, for upcoming, you know, scenarios. We've seen lots of messing around with time, so, you know, at least Ebba Thwain, I believe, you know, kind of has foreknowledge of the future and what's to come. So they kind of team up, but as with any kind of villains teaming up, they never usually work that well. They each have their kind of own agenda or their own idea of getting these versions of the Flash to be the best they are, and obviously that relationship between them two breaks down and they kind of go their own separate ways. And like I said, we just kind of get the histories of the Flash, all the, you know, their history with the Rogues Gallery, their kind of the tragedies that they've had in their life, who they've lost. Barry goes to Batman to try and work things out, but he's not there, and he has this kind of odd conversation with, of all people, Alfred, Batman's butler, and he's there to kind of calm Barry down and get him kind of on the straight and narrow, and, you know, think about this and not be so emotional. So it was a difficult read for me, but only because I haven't got that history with the Flash. I haven't got the whole kind of timeline of this character. So I'm kind of going into this blind. Again, it's one of those books that's fun enough. I'm sure long-term readers of The Flash are getting more out of this than perhaps I am. But I'm still enjoying it. It's got Scott Collins back on the art, which I like. I like his art style. I hope he's on for some time. I was reading on, someone posted up on Twitter that this book is going to a $3.99 price tag very soon, and given this is a book that comes out twice a month, it's going to worry me about whether I want to stick with it. Yes, I've got lots of books that I'm dropping off, so I have, I suppose, more disposable cash at my hand to be able to afford this, but I do feel that if you're going to push that price tag back up to the $3.99, it has to just come out once a month, which I'll be more than happy with, but we'll see. Fun enough, it's just kind of steadily coasting on my pull list right now. Now, I would have liked to put Hungry Ghosts, this 4-issue mini-series, horror anthology series, a little bit higher in this week's pull list. Because overall I think it was an interesting concept, and I've enjoyed, for the most part, all the stories that has been told in here with kind of common theme of food. However, I think they've missed an opportunity here. Obviously, it's over too soon for the concept that was first established, where we have this group of very rich people having the best food cooked for them. Once they finish the meal, they play this game of such, where there is this room, it's filled with candles. Each person, and in this case the cooks, the chefs, all the kitchen staff, tell a story in this room that's lit with all candles. You blow a candle out, you look into the mirror, and hopefully you don't get possessed by this demon character. And to me that shows quite a longevity for this book. There are hundreds of candles, so we could potentially have hundreds of stories. But for whatever reason, we've got a 4-issue miniseries, and they kind of wrap this up, this concept up at the end of this book, but not as fantastic as I would have liked it to. There are 2 stories here, one centering on our cover star, and it is basically a kind of spirit out in the wilderness that takes the life of this young boy's father. She spares him because she's attracted to him, but on the proviso that he doesn't mention a word of what has transpired here. And while he finds it difficult to begin with, he manages to kind of get round it and just get on with his life. He meets a young girl he falls in love with, he marries, and there is this one moment in his life after being married to this woman that the woman reminds him so much of that moment that he blurts the secret out. Of course, who is this woman? It is the spirit, and she takes his life for telling who he thought was just a normal human being his secret, which he should have taken to the grave. So, I mean, it was a kind of obvious ending to that storyline. But it's not until we get to this final story, which I have to say, you've got to give it up because it's a Francesco Francavilla art, which kind of made up for a somewhat, again, lackluster storyline that they tried to kind of fit into the main overarching storyline, where we have this village and it's desolate, nothing's growing. They basically kill everything that they possibly could eat. Nothing will grow on this. And then there's kind of, I guess, what do you call it? I guess a minotaur, a human with a bull's head. I'm guessing some sort of godlike being who's come in peace, who's got some big secret to tell them, probably going to switch their fortunes around, but the village are so hungry and all they can see is meat, so they kill this, I guess it's some sort of deity, and just eat it until they're full. And it does, I mean, that's a fantastic layout of the story there. Great Francesco Francavilla art and panelling. And they are full, they're finally satiated. But, of course, the twist is that out of their stomachs burst all these horrendous demons and monsters alike. And as the person, one of the cooks that is telling this story, finishes it off, you can see in this, he looks into the mirror and there does seem to be the reflection of a demon, and the guy reverts to a demon form, and what we find on the last page is all these kind of chefs and cooks were actually the demons from past storylines, and they basically massacre the guests at this this dinner table. It just felt a little flat. As I said, overall this series has been fun. I've really enjoyed it. But the concept just could have gone so much further and been so much more enjoyable and created a really good, strong ending, which this didn't particularly have. Now, I said on Wednesday when I was just showing you what was on my pull list that Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda's Monstrous came out this week, issue 16, and that it was it was sometimes a very tough book to read because it has kind of got that epic quality of a kind of Game of Thrones storyline where there are kind of a lot of storylines and agendas and subplots running through the whole of this story, that it's kind of hard to keep up, and especially when this kind of book is taking kind of brief breaks here and there, that I was glad that this particular issue was very much a kind of almost all action kind of affair, as we get Micah and her demon that she's attached to, Zin, go through this locked door that leads down to a long lost laboratory, which holds the key to putting the shield back up on this this free land where everyone can live in peace, because all the other people from the other lands are coming in to attack and get Micah. And so they're going into this, you know, it's kind of like the dungeon scenario. We don't know what's in there, what monsters lie, and right from the offset we are kind of attacked by these robot kind of steampunk type characters that have gone kind of against programming, but fortunately between the two they take it down and go further and further into the ground. And obviously this is taking it a lot out of Micah. Her power is, I guess, connected to the demon within her, but she is after all only human and can only go so far. And then we have the kind of guardian, I guess, which is kind of, I guess it's kind of like an Alfred Pennyworth character. He's kind of the butler of this, and at first he seems very very friendly and helpful, but eventually turns against them. And we have a monster come into the fray. It is monsterific in this issue, it really is. And again, it adds a kind of a bit more of a storyline about Zin and the kind of monster's history. Apparently there's some sort of history of betrayal with him, which Zin denies. So it's just action-packed, and of course the artwork in this book is from Sana Takeda. It's just beautiful. It's beautifully rendered and just a gorgeous sight to behold of this book. I do like Monstrous very much. It's just one of those books that perhaps has too many storylines going on at once for this poor mind to cope with. It's issue number 304 of Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man, and the start of a new storyline, No More. And we had our kind of heroes of Spider-Man, his sister, J. Jonah Jameson, heading back to the present day. But when they get to the present day, things aren't quite as they seem. Time travel stories and kind of, I guess, alternate versions of your future or present day can often be a little bit iffy, but this particular one I really enjoyed. I thought it was nicely set up. It made kind of sense, despite the fact that Doom said whatever you did in the past isn't going to affect the future. Clearly the young version of Spider-Man, Peter Parker, overhearing the conversation between his older version and his sister about, you know, all the people that have been affected in his life over the years and how many losses there have been, and that made the young Peter Parker give up being Spider-Man. Made a huge impact on the present day that we are now in, because now we have a version of the timeline where Peter Parker did not become Spider-Man, and Harry Osborn is now I guess the Prime Minister, not the Prime Minister, the President of America, and he has got elected people like Octavia, Dr. Ock, as head of the police. So you get these these kind of drones that are obviously octopus-like in look. And so it's up to these three that have come back from the past to the present to find out what the hell's going on. And you've got Peter Parker, who's now all grown up, with Gwen Stacy. She's still alive in this timeline because obviously he didn't become Peter Parker, he didn't become Spider-Man, and that whole Green Goblin scenario didn't happen. But Gwen is... Gwen wants Spider-Man to be in this universe, and Peter, the young version of Peter who's grown up, he just wants nothing to do with it. He's built his empire, he's doing well, and he just wants, I guess, the quiet life. And there's little touches in this that just make this a little bit better than the normal storyline. And a point that was really nicely done by Chip Zdarsky here was J. Jonah Jameson's feelings on this, because we've already had, I know it seems to happen so many times, but you know, Peter showed his identity to J. Jonah Jameson, and they kind of have this uneasy alliance, I guess, and understanding. But Jonah Jameson realises, you know, all the wasted time now from the original storyline, from the original timeline, that he wasted on kind of berating and making out that Spider-Man was kind of public enemy #1, and this was the world that would have happened if Spider-Man didn't exist. And he you almost feel a little bit that he's feeling a lot of guilt about it, and I like that touch within it. So we have, obviously in this story, in this version and timeline, people are slightly different, and I am interested. I don't know if we'll get a full story on this, but there was a great picture of Ben Grimm as Venom, so all kind of, you know, thinged out, getting ready to do some clobbering. I did like that. And there's a kind of rebel, I guess, alliance going on, which has Doctor Strange, Captain America still in it. So they go up and they're going to go and find someone to help. And that is in the guise of this timeline's Doom, who is imprisoned. We see him right at the end of this issue in a cell. I'm excited for this storyline. I really like it. As I said, timeline variation storylines, not always the best, but this has some flavour to it, and I like that flavour. It's The Highest House, Mike Carey, Peter Gross, issue #4 of this magazine format comic story. And as much as I'd love to make this pick of the week once again, because it is damn fine, I just couldn't. As much as I love this book, kind of wanted to give something else a bit of limelight as pick of the week this week. So it only narrowly missed out. If I could, I'd give them both pick of the weeks. I am so enjoying this run, and it's just such a shame that this is a kind of, I think it's a 6-issue mini-series, because I could continue to read this for years and years. We talked about Monstrous having that kind of Game of Thrones feel. This definitely does, but pushes the more traditional fantasy genre to the fore. And maybe that's very much why I like it. It harkens and is a bit nostalgic for me. But it's just a brilliant, well thought out and laid out storyline. We had at the end of last issue Moth being quite infatuated with his king's daughter, and they were kind of having a friendship build, which Moth thought was going to come into something more. But the king's daughter isn't interested in Moth. She's interested in her lady servant, and unfortunately Moth kind of interrupted them mid passion, shall we say. So we start off this issue with Moth being kind of upset and annoyed with our Obsidian, the kind of disembodied voice that is coming out of the rock that hopefully Moth is going to help whatever or whoever is inside it escape. The main part of this storyline is the kind of coming together of the families for the king's daughter's marriage or upcoming marriage to one of the other family's sons, a kind of pre-arranged deal, and them all coming together for a kind of big banquet. But before that can even happen, there is a riot outside and a break-in, and all hell breaks loose as they try and take down this house. And so it's a great kind of battle scenes going on. Moth even gets involved and gets kind of the servants and all the slaves involved to help. And you can see the way that Mike Carey is progressing Moth's character and getting him closer and closer to, I guess, Obsidian's goal of releasing him. And for Moth to be able to do that, he has to get closer and closer to this kind of royal family. And what Moth has, the idea that Moth wants is to have all these servants be free men, and just to serve, they'll still serve their king, but as free men. And again, it's that whole interaction with the king and Moth, which is, you know, you wouldn't normally speak to the king like this. He is still a slave, but the king kind of likes his chutzpah and goes off to think about it. But again, it's just a gorgeous book, and again, there's a lot of great storytelling in here. They can pack so much more into this book because of the oversized nature of it, and it does take me a long time to read, and I don't feel kind of bad about that. I have to show you some of the art while I'm talking because it is just beautiful. I don't feel bad about having to take my time to read this because it's such an enjoyable product, and I just can't get enough of it. Roll on issue number 5 of The Highest House. Go out and find this, buy it now. My pick of the week for now is Maestro's issue number 6. Oh, this was a fantastic read, and just in time, as this seems to be the penultimate issue of this mini-series, which is a shame. I'm guessing so because at the end of this title it says to be concluded, though when we get to the end of this title you wonder what can possibly come next. We've been away from the Maestro universe for a little bit, but we had this kind of book of what was it called? Oh dear. Book of Creation, or the Book of Renewing, or something like that. Basically, it's a big almighty powerful book that will allow whoever's holding it to create whatever world they desire, and they're all after it. And so there is a lot of twists and turns. It's huge amounts of action and battling and war, blood, guts, little smidges of humour everywhere along here. And by the end of it, you kind of get the destruction of the universe, and it all seems to be ending. And it's just a fantastic ride. I mean, the artwork alone by Steve Scrius and Dave Stewart on here, it goes from this kind of gorgeous full page splash with a little kind of history tone to it, and then they get these crazy high detailed double page splashes of a huge battle, and it's just so gloriously coloured and detailed. You are just along for the ride, and it is at a roller coaster speed. People die that you don't expect. Villains die. Villains are triumphant. and everything looks to be over for not just our main character, but absolutely everyone. As Mardok, who we'd seen at the very beginning of this storyline, finally has his hands on this all-powerful book and just wipes out basically creation and leaves just himself there. So how this book now is going to end, who knows? Has our young Maestro a trick under his sleeve after all this? But I just had the most fun with this. I guess with it being the penultimate issue of this series, whether it's going to come back again with kind of a new storyline, I don't know. But I'd wait out for a trade on this now. But I'm sure anyone who's been reading this will tell you the same thing. It's been a fantastic ride. Again, so colourful, so detailed, just action-packed, fun, adult humour, I will stress, but just some great characters in there that you can go along on the ride with. Just fun. I need you all to go and check this out, because it's a good book. It's a good book. That's it for this week. Thank you for joining me on Comic Book Review Day. I hope you enjoyed those. Let me know if you've read any of those books, what you also thought of them. And if you have opposite views to me, that's fine. Let me know what your pick of the week was as well, down in the comment section below. Don't forget, if you're new to my channel and you don't want to miss out any more of my videos, hit the subscribe button, knock that bell icon on as well, so you'll get a notification every time I upload a video. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye.